Jake here for Extreme Terrain, and today I'm taking a look at the Redrock 2-inch suspension lift kit fitting 2005 to 2023 6-lug Tacomas. If you want to get a cooler, beefier stance on your Tacoma without having to spend a bunch of money to do it, then this kit from Redrock is going to be exactly what you're looking for. Most trucks come from the factory with a bit of forward rake to them, and the Tacoma is not immune to this. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, rake refers to the angle at which the vehicle sits. So if you're looking at it from the side, you'll notice that Tacomas in the front tend to sit a little bit lower than the rear. In newer gens especially, some can sit 2 inches lower in the front versus the rear. Now, some might like that look, but if you're going to do any type of off-roading, or if you want to add some more clearance for larger wheels and tires without going whole hog on a lift kit, something like this is going to be the right option for you. Now, this kit is going to give you the clearance that you need to run up to 31-inch tires on your truck without any issues or other modifications. You can get some pretty aggressive tires on there if you stick to that 31-inch size. Now, squeezing some smaller 32s on there might also be possible, but if you really want to go bigger than that, especially if you're looking to go up to 33s, you're going to need to plan on doing a larger lift or do other mods. Now, up front we have a pair of spacers, and these measure just about 1.5 inches in actual height. Now, it's important to remember that suspension lifts are not one-to-one, especially when it comes to the spacer. So the height of this spacer doesn't exactly correspond to how much lift you're going to get. It has to do with suspension geometry. But these are still going to give you those 2 inches of lift in the front end of the truck. Now, these are going to insert at the top of your front struts. It's going to give you that lift to your front suspension that will also end up leveling out the stance of the truck. Now, raising the front end will result in a better approach angle and better overall ground clearance. It might not be a whole lot, but overall it will still make a difference, especially if you're doing some off-roading. Now, out back you also get a set of blocks with some new U-bolts. Those blocks measure pretty close to that 2-inch in physical height. So this is also going to give you that about 2 inches in the rear, but it's again going to give you more of an even stance leveling out the truck. Going with a spacer lift of this size isn't going to have a negative impact on ride quality either. You might notice things being a little bit stiffer overall, but since you're keeping your factory springs and shocks, it's going to ride pretty similar to how it did from the factory. And you're not putting a ton of extra stress on suspension components because you're not jacking this way up to the sky. Spacers are a pretty simple thing, but it's important that they are done right. So the ones up front are made from CNC machined aircraft grade billet aluminum, and they've been anodized black to keep everything protected against rust and corrosion. And unlike polyurethane spacers or even fabricated ones, these aluminum ones are much less likely to wear out, and they're going to stand up better to abuse because there are no welds or bends in these at all. Also good news if you plan on taking your truck off-road. Now, the blocks in the back are of the fabricated variety, but as you can tell, these suckers are thick and they are hefty. They've got a nice bit of weight to them. So these aren't going to take the same type of impact as the front spacers will because of their location, but so they're going to be very strong and durable, and since they're finished off with this nice satin black powder coat, they're going to be resistant to rust and corrosion as well. Plus, again, you've got those all-new U-bolts in the back to replace your original ones. Pricing for this kit comes in at about $150, which is pretty inexpensive even for a spacer kit. Now, you could spend more money for more height, but if you want something that's simple, effective, and is going to maintain your stock shocks and ride quality, you really can't go wrong here because this is going to get you that height and stance that you're looking for without having to spend a whole lot of money to get there. Installation will come in at 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter, and it should take you about 3 hours or so to complete the job. Now, this is going to require removing some bits and getting things out of the wheel well to gain access to the front struts, plus dropping down the rear axle to gain access to the spacers and U-bolts in the rear. However, this is not a hard job overall, and do remember that once you've got everything bolted back together, you should plan on getting an alignment done since you are going to be changing around that suspension geometry. So with that, why don't we head out to the install bay now and we'll show you the process of how to get these installed.
For this install, you will need air and electric impacts, 3/8 and 1/2 inch ratchets, 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter, 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter, 1/2 inch swivel socket, 12mm socket, 16mm swivel socket, 14, 17, 19, and 21mm deep sockets, 14mm ratcheting wrench, 17 and 19mm wrenches, needle nose pliers, and a ball peen hammer. Also not shown here is a pole jack or jack and jack stands. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing a lift kit on our Tacoma, so let's get started. So we're going to start things off up front here, and we're going to go ahead and remove our bracket for our brake line from our steering knuckle here. And we're going to grab our 12mm socket on our ratchet, go ahead and get that off. Once you have your bolt off, you can go ahead and pull your bracket away from your knuckle. And we'll go ahead and throw that bolt right back in there so we don't lose track of it. That'll do. Next, we're gonna go ahead and remove our sway bar end link from our knuckle. And to do that, we're gonna grab our 17mm socket on our impact. Go ahead and remove this nut. Now this is something you will want to do for both sides at the same time, so we'll go ahead and take our other one off as well. Now that we have our nut off, we'll go ahead and pop our end link out of our knuckle. And we'll go ahead and replace our nut right on the stud here, just so we don't lose track. Now this is something that you will want to do at the same time on both sides, so even if you're not disassembling both sides at one time, you will need to remove both sway bar end links for proper travel. Next, we're gonna remove our cotter pins from our upper ball joint as well as our outer tie rod end. So we'll grab our needle nose pliers and pop those out. So we'll set these aside. And we'll go ahead and get our tie rod cotter pin off. You wanna bend your flares back out as straight as possible. Hook our needle nose through our cotter pin, pop that right out. So next we need to go ahead and get the nut off of our outer tie rod end, so we'll go ahead and grab our 19mm socket on our impact and go ahead and run that off. Now we can go ahead and grab our hammer and give a few taps to the knuckle here and get our tie rod end unseated. Now you can go ahead and re-thread the nut on a couple threads just to kind of protect the stud here. And we'll go ahead and give a few taps on our knuckle. Now you want to be very careful not to hit your rotor or dust shield or anything like that in the process. And once it's out of the seat, we'll go ahead and unthread the nut, pop our tie rod out, and we'll go ahead and set that nut right back on there. So next we can go ahead and get our nut for our upper ball joint off, and we're going to use our 19mm socket and swivel adapter on our impact to go ahead and run that off. Now that we've got that loose, we'll let it hang on a couple threads just to catch the control arm once we pop that out of the seat as well. So now just like our tie rod, we're gonna grab our hammer and go ahead and give our knuckle a few smacks again and get our control arm popped out of its seat. So now we can go ahead and fully remove our upper ball joint nut, and you may need to push down on your control arm just a little bit. Go ahead and let that out of the knuckle. Replace our nut. Bring this off to the side here like this. You don't want to let this just fall because you do have your axle in here still. So we'll go ahead and grab our bungee cord and secure this up out of the way just so it doesn't have excess tension on the axle. So next we can go ahead and remove our lower strut mounting bolt. So we'll grab our 19mm socket on our impact and a 19mm wrench and go ahead and get that off. Go ahead and get our nut off first and our washer. And we'll go ahead and support our knuckle just a little bit. Go ahead and get this bolt out. And once we have our bolt out, go ahead and slowly let our control arm down. You always want to make sure there's no excess tension on your axle. You can still spin it. It's not out of its boots. We'll set our hardware aside. Next, we can go ahead and remove our upper 3 strut mounting nuts using our 14mm ratcheting wrench. And once you have all of these loose, we'll go ahead and grab the bottom, support it up, remove the nuts fully, and then remove our strut. So while removing the strut, you want to go ahead and push your sway bar link down and out of the way so you have room to go ahead and remove your assembly. So now that we have our strut out, we can go ahead and get ready to remove our upper control arm. And to do that, we're going to first pop off these fabric panels so we can access our control arm bolt and get to where we need to get. So we'll grab our clip removal tool, pop all these clips off for the front and the rear one, then get those out of the way so we can go ahead and do what we need to do. Now this one you can kind of just let hang down at the rear here. Now we have full access to our hardware for our control arm. So now we can go ahead and remove our nut for our upper control arm bolt. So we're going to grab our 19mm socket on our ratchet and our 19mm wrench. Go ahead and pop that off. And once you have this loose, it should just spin right off by hand. So now, since this is a single bolt design, this bolt is yo long and has to go all the way up into the front of our engine bay to be removed. So what you're going to have to do is keep your washer basically where it's at and feed the bolt up through, making sure it's free of anything that's going to be in the way along the way. Now, I won't lie, it is pretty tricky. Just be patient with it, keep working it, and keep this washer as close as you can to the bushing part here, and you should be okay. So once you have this out for this side, you can go ahead and repeat the same process for the other side. So now it's time to go ahead and install our spacer onto our strut. So we'll go ahead and line our holes up with our factory strut studs, like so. And then we'll use our factory strut nuts to secure the spacer on. We'll go ahead and install those. Then we'll go ahead and tighten those down using our 14mm socket on our impact. And once you have this installed, you can go ahead and do the same thing for your other strut. So now we can go ahead and get our strut back into position, and we're going to secure the top with our provided 16mm bolts, lock washers, and flat washers. Go ahead and slide our strut into position here. A little tricky to get it back into place sometimes. we'll go ahead and get our hardware installed. So now that we have our top mounting hardware loosely in place holding our strut, we'll go ahead and get our bottom mounting bolt back into position. Then we'll go ahead and reinstall our factory washer and nut. And we'll get that tightened down. So now we'll go ahead and tighten this back down with our 19mm socket and 19mm wrench. Now we'll go ahead and tighten down our top mounting hardware using our 16mm swivel socket on our ratchet. So now we have to get our upper control arm ball joint back into the knuckle. Now with this new spacer, that is a bit of a challenge, but we're going to lower the truck down. We're going to put a floor jack under the lower control arm and jack it up and go ahead and line our ball joint back up with our knuckle and then get our nut back on. So now we've got our truck lowered down and we've got our floor jack located under our lower control arm, and we've got a buddy to help us work the floor jack while we line up our upper ball joint to our knuckle. So now we've got it through enough to get our nut back onto our ball joint. That'll hold it in place so we can tighten it back down. So now we'll go ahead and grab our 19mm socket on our ratchet and tighten down our nut. So now we'll go ahead and get our retainer pin back in place. Now once we have this done on both sides up to this point, we can go ahead and reinstall our sway bar end link as well as our outer tie rod and our brake line bracket. Now we'll go ahead and get our sway bar end link back into position. We can reinstall our factory nut. And we'll go ahead and tighten that down. Now we'll use our 17mm socket on our impact to tighten this down. We'll get our tie rod end back into place. Line that up. Reinstall our factory castle nut. And we'll use our 19mm socket on our impact to tighten this down. Next, we'll get our cotter pin back in place. Now, I do recommend using new cotter pins whenever you're doing stuff like this, but for demonstration purposes, we're going to reuse ours. Once you have your cotter pin in, go ahead and take our needle nose pliers and bend them back around the stud. Again, there is no real wrong way to install a cotter pin as long as it is folded around the threads, preventing your nut from coming back out. That is the whole point of them. Now we'll go ahead and get our brake line bracket back on. And we'll tighten it down using our 12mm socket on our impact. Now once you've got this complete for this side, you can go ahead and repeat these same steps for the other side. So now we've come to the rear end of the vehicle. We can go ahead and get ready to lower our differential down so we can add our lifting blocks. And we've got our 2 pole jacks supporting our differential, and we do have a third on the yoke of the drive shaft That just is going to help us maintain our driveline angle. It is optional, but it does help when you're raising the differential back up to line it up. So we'll go ahead and begin by removing our lower shock mounting bolts. And we'll grab our 17mm socket on our impact and a 17mm wrench and go ahead and get these off. Go ahead and pop this out. You may need to adjust your differential a little bit to allow for relief of pressure. So if you do find this is giving you a little bit of trouble, you can grab a small pry bar and come here in between your shock and your mounting point. And we're just going to give it a little bit of a raise here. So we put a little pressure on our differential to raise it up just a little bit to relieve the tension on our shock mounting bolt. So we can go ahead and remove that. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. So now once you have both lower mounting bolts out, you can go ahead and grab your small pry bar and just pop your lower mounts out of their brackets like so. And this is just to make sure that they're loose and they're not going to snag when we go to lower our differential. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can go ahead and remove our U-bolt nuts using our 19mm socket on our impact. Now we can go ahead and remove our cradle. Next, we can go ahead and remove our U-bolts themselves. And then we'll go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side. Now we can go ahead and lower our differential down to make room for our lifting blocks. Make sure your shocks aren't interfering, which they aren't. So now we have our differential lowered down enough to add in our blocks, and the way it's going to sit is the larger end is going to sit towards the back of the vehicle, smaller towards the front, and the U shape is going to be at the bottom so our dowel can fit into our differential perch, and our top has an open slot here for the leaf spring dowel. Now we'll get our other side in and then we'll raise our differential back up so it'll mount flush and we can install our new U-bolts and our cradle underneath our differential. So now that we have our blocks in place and they're set into their dowels, we can go ahead and install our new U-bolts. So we'll slide them over in the same position as our factory ones went. Next, we can go ahead and reinstall our cradle onto our U-bolts. Now these may bow out a little bit, but you can go ahead and grab them by the threads and squeeze them in. It should be enough for the cradle to slide onto the U-bolts. And once you have them on, we'll go ahead and install our supplied flat washers and 22mm nuts. Then we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the other side, and we'll get these tightened down. So now we can go ahead and get our U-bolt nuts tightened down. Now one thing here is you want to alternate tightening either side just so it pulls onto the differential evenly. So we'll go ahead and grab our 22mm socket on our impact and tighten these down. So once you have this done, you can go ahead and repeat the same process for the other side. So in order to get our bottom shock mounts back into place, we are going to have to put the wheels on and lower the truck back to the ground and line up our lower shock mounts and use the weight of the truck to go ahead and get that back in line, because if we try to lift it with the pole jacks on here, it'll lift the truck off the lift, unfortunately, before we can get it lined up. So now we've got the wheels on our truck, and we're going to go ahead and lower it down and use the weight of the vehicle itself to bring our lower shock mount to the mounting point on our differential. So we'll go ahead and lower that down, and we'll get our bottom mounting bolt back in, get those secured, and we'll be done. So now we've got the truck lowered and our lower shock mount is lined up with the mounting bracket. So we'll go ahead and get our bolt in, then we'll get it tightened down. So now we can go ahead and reinstall our factory washer and nut. And we'll tighten this back down using our 17mm wrench and our 17mm socket on our impact. Now once you have that done, you can go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Alrighty guys, that about wraps up our review and install of our Red Rock 2-inch suspension lift kit for your 05 to current 6-lug Tacoma. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Tacoma, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.